Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. I'm trying to see if we got anything going here on the live chats. Unauthorized is live. D-Live is not looking very live, so, but we'll see. I am told that the audio and video is good on the unauthorized side, so we may be having a problem with the D-Live chat, so I'll just turn it off if, yeah, thank you. Meister likes my green screen. I finally came clean. Admitted that it's all just an elaborate setup, hiding the truth from everyone's eyes. So, anyhow, if I sound a bit tired, that's just because I'm kind of exhausted. And I thought it was, to be honest, I didn't feel like streaming at all tonight, but it's been a few days, and I wanted to give an update on a few things. And I also wanted to hit a topic that I've been reminded of both in my personal experiences and in the news lately. Obviously, all of you are familiar with what's going on with that Ocean Gate mini sub, which last I had heard is still missing. Pretty much running out of air and all that sort of thing. And I don't think that people are unaware of or unconscious of the human tragedy element of it. But the level of just arrogance and stupidity and social justice and all that sort of thing, it's not surprising that people are memeing the hell out of it. But I want to talk about where the probable errors came in, because I've been dealing with the same sort of thing over the last, 4 weeks here. I'll give you an example. I mean, you guys all know how long we've been working on the bindery, right? We've been working on it for, years. I don't think we're technically 2 years plural yet, but it's been over a year. And, we had the final machines all identified, ordered. They were working on getting their hands on them. And so I started the process of ordering all the parts that we were going to need, the pieces that we were going to need to start testing. We ordered 200 book blocks. We got the meditations reprinted with a special test bindery edition. Ordered the goat skin. I think we ordered like 40 goat skin hides, which is enough for about 120 books of that size. We ordered 200 cowhides cut to size, or 200 cowhide covers cut to size. All the various pieces that you have to get. The one thing that we didn't know about, because we've never been involved with it before, is the materials. We knew that there was glue involved and so forth. And so there's a problem that I've noticed, and I'm bringing this to your attention because I think it might apply to some of you. We're not talking about incompetence here. We're not talking about stupidity. We're talking about something that is much more dangerous, in my opinion, and that is the confidence of the intelligent and the experienced, the misplaced confidence of the intelligent and the experienced. The more experienced you are, the more you know about a subject, the more confident you become that you can just figure it out. You know, yeah, we went through this just a few weeks ago when we were putting together that wall at the chateau. My dad's an engineer. He's very smart. He's very experienced, and he correctly, in the end, assumed that he could, figure things out as they went along. But the problem is, and I have absolutely no doubt that that's exactly what the guy who's in charge of the Oceans Gate thing did. He was even warned by his technical expert that there was going to be an issue with the quality stuff. And if you look at the way that things are being done, there's definitely that attitude, well, we'll figure it out. We'll sort it out. But the thing is that it's so much easier and things go so much more smoothly if you attempt to sorry, Sam just said his name is Rush after all. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's probably a good reason that his forebears had that name. But the thing is, it's so much easier on everybody, and there's so much more room for error, and you give yourself so much more margin if you do the design, if you do the plan effectively. Now, I'm not saying that obsessing over a plan in lieu of action is advisable. It's not. I've said many times, you got to learn to fail faster. You have to understand that when you make a plan, a business plan, you should know going in, you're going to have to make adjustments. You're going to have to modify your expectations. As with Castalia, you might find yourself in a completely, fundamentally different market than you originally intended. We set up Castalia to sell ebooks. Now we pretty much give them away to people that buy the real products. The original name of Coleco, the video game manufacturer of the 80s, was the Connecticut Leather Company. And they got into doing video games because they started making some toys out of leather, and then the opportunity presented itself. They took advantage of it and, did really well for a while. Today I was just about ready to strangle the guy who's been helping us with the machines and that sort of thing, because I've been trying to get the list of things that we need, right? I mean, the experts are here, and the guy who we've been doing some of the other training. I'll tell you about that in a bit. But the guy who is sort of the bookmaker guy is arriving tomorrow, and so I wanted to make sure that we had everything we need to actually finish books off, start to finish. And so I call the guy up, and he's a really good guy, great guy. You would like him. I like him. And he's got a tremendous amount of experience. He's always got these interesting stories to tell. Well, I said, look, there's a Conundrum Bear says here's some change from one significant otter to another. I thank you, I think. I'm not sure I follow, but again, I'm tired. Anyhow, I call him a couple weeks ago. I said, look, I need the list of materials. Send me the list of materials. well, you just need to get some glue and that sort of thing. This is the place you should get it. So I go on the website. There are something like 256 different kinds of glue. So I call him up. I'm like, look, that's not specific enough. I need to know exactly what to get. And he's like, well, just you can get whatever ribbon you want. You can get whatever heading. I said, I yeah, I know I can, and I'll choose the color, that sort of thing. But I need to know what's the size. Just give me one example of what's the correct thing to do, right? So, so he sends me a list, and this time it's a good list. It's got all the links to the actual products. So I'm going through, and then I don't know what it was. I just got suspicious. I was thinking something about this seems wrong. And what was my subconscious telling me, okay, you've got the glue for this machine, you've got the glue for that machine, but there's at least one other machine that uses glue. Does it use the same type of glue? So, so I call him up, and he says, I said, look, I've got this type of glue, I got that type of glue. What about this other machine? He says, well, it's funny when we ordered that machine, they were supposed to send us the glue with it, but they didn't, and so that's why you don't have that glue. I'm like, is that the same glue as this other one? He's like, oh no. I'm like, I've been asking you for like 3 or 4 months, and today is the very first time you tell me that there's a third type of glue that we need. I mean, I couldn't. I would say I couldn't believe it, except for the fact that after we've been putting this stuff together for weeks with regards to the wall, and all the stuff was ordered, all this stuff was delivered, all this sort of thing. Literally the night before the digger's gonna arrive and all this stuff, my dad says, yeah, we should get some rebar. Like, why am I hearing about this for the first time? How is this even possible? And so there's first of all, this is very important to understand if you're working with one of these um, smart, experienced, seat of the pants guys. Okay, you're just asking them, uh, give me the entire list, is useless. It accomplishes nothing. Not only that, they will resist you. They will actively resist giving you the full information. I don't know why, but they will. Um, and so, you know, the best thing that you can do is to um, hit it repeatedly and ask questions about how things are going to be done. Not to try to understand it, but try to get them to reveal these additional things that they know are needed that you don't. Sam says, my boss made our team slow down and write tech specs for almost every new feature for this reason. Yeah, you know, um, one of the things that I've had the guys doing is when they're getting trained in on stuff, write down the entire process. Write it all down. Each step, every little step, write it down. That way we have some hope of, figuring out what's gone wrong if somebody forgets a step, if something, if we're missing something, whatever. Um, it's so much easier. Now, obviously, you can go way too far overboard. You can get into bureaucracy and all that sort of thing. I'm not talking about that. You know, there's um, the original Cyberpunk is a very experienced tech writer. He spent decades uh, doing tech writing for documenting um, Cray, Cray research, and that's just a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. Um, Jay Bila says, "I lost my faith in engineers. I rely on the contractors for the details. That is what engineers do if they're any good." Yeah, I mean, I understand the difficulty of sorting through everything. When when you're a game designer and you have to detail everything, it can be very um, annoying, and it's very tedious to make yourself make the decisions. What I suspect is happening is that in some cases, not all of them, but in some cases, I think that it's just not wanting to make the decisions until the decision absolutely has to be made. But that doesn't fully make sense because you know I mean, we're buying a machine. It needs glue. What glue does it need? You know, you're building a wall. It needs you know stone. That's. I mean, sometimes things are obvious, but what's interesting to me is that most of the grand failures that I have either been involved with or personally witnessed have actually been the result of some form of this type of behavior. Um, Conundrum Bear says, "These smart, proficient, seat of your pants guys sounds like a veiled insult." It's not actually an insult. It's a articulation of a perceived problem, and um, it's also giving those. It's basically, on the one hand, those of you who are prone to this can become aware of it and eliminate it from your habits, and more importantly, those of us who are not can be aware of it to anticipate it and avoid the problem in the future. Sleep deprived bear is clearly feeling empathetic. He sends a nice super chat and says, "Thank you, Vox, for all you do and for your efforts to spread and preserve practical knowledge." You're very welcome. It's one of the most rewarding things I do. In fact, I was really pleased by the latest ArcToon series. It's called The Lost Era Transcripts, and it's a series of writings and artwork by a guy who lived in undeveloped Southern California in 1964. And he's got a whole set of descriptions and pictures that he painted, and it's really remarkable. And I'm very pleased that ArcToons can be a part of preserving some of that knowledge. I love reading history. I expect that there's people in the future that are going to enjoy reading the histories that are written of our era, and hopefully they'll learn something from it. And speaking to those future people, remember, pick your own damn cotton and always sink the ships. You do those two things, you're probably going to be all right. Anyhow, I just think it's very important to be aware of these things because when you're dealing with smart and proficient people, you have a tendency to trust them. And sometimes that trust is not very well placed because, and the reason that I call this, keep the freaking context in mind. I was really frustrated today because we were talking about the hubbing, the bands that are on the books, on the spines. And the initial solution that came up was just going to take way too much time. It was clearly a a decision that was made forgetting the context of we're trying to do 1,000 books at once. It's an excellent solution for a handbound situation. Now, of course, because the guys that we're working with are not just proficient, but are literally world-class experts on the subject, they actually came up with a potential solution that is not only better in terms of the final result, but shouldn't be a deal breaker in terms of the ease of semi-automated production. So it's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, that forgetting that may have actually ultimately led to what will be a better solution in the long run. But it doesn't change the fact that clearly at some point in time, the context was forgotten, right? And so when you're a tree person, when you're focused on the details, it's not okay to always stay focused on the details. You need to periodically pull back and ask yourself, is what I'm doing on the tactical front, is that actually in line with the strategic goals? My old partner at Fenris Wolf was one of the best I've ever seen at that. He could dive in deep, and it would always be consistent with the strategy. Most good detail people do tend to get lost in them occasionally. And that actually often becomes for a software manager, that actually becomes a primary role, is just keeping the programmers in context. So anyhow, let's have a look at this. This is what we've been doing, and this should explain why I've been busy. So what you're looking at here is a little pump lift, and it can hold about 2,000 kilos. And that is the window that we have to use for the machines. The entry to the building is too small and has steps, and so it necessitates, the largest entry into our space is this window. And so that's where all the big stuff has to come in. Now, most of the machines, fortunately, fit through that space. Unfortunately, one of the most important machines, the foil stamper, didn't. So this is not actually the complete foil stamper. This is the part above the foundation, above the base. And so what was necessary here was we actually needed 2 forklifts, and we had 8 guys working on this. So what you're seeing there is the top half of the, not half, but the top 2/3 of the foil stamper sitting above the foundation. Now, this is really worrisome because although we got the machine used, and so we saved quite a bit of money that way, it's a very expensive machine, and you really don't want to drop it. So what we had to do was strap it to a forklift, lift it up. The blades are so high you can't even see them, but you can see the wheel of the forklift there on the left. Lift it up, unbolt the bottom, and then so this is a front view of what we're dealing with there. So you can see the window to the side. You can see how there's not a lot of room to fit it in. I mean, even with the bottom off, it barely fit. So that's one of the movers. There's the whole gang gathering around and working on that's the base of it. So the base was lowered, or the base was in first. Then we brought that in, raised up the base, and then bolted everything together before lowering it down to the floor. That was so. Then we ran into yet another problem, and this is the same problem that I'm talking about, which is we had all of the air tubes, all the pipes set up 3 months ago, something like that. 3 months ago, I think, maybe even 4. And we ordered the compressor because there's like 6 machines that require air compression, and we at no point in time did they tell us that we were going to need this sort of U-shaped connection between the two. So suddenly we're sitting there, and I'm talking to the landlord. They're super helpful. They're absolutely fantastic, and and so I'm talking to my contact there, and she's trying to get the guy to come in. He's like, I can't come in until next week. It's just not possible. So instead of leaving things set up where they were, we physically moved the air compressor over, since we didn't need to use all the machines. So we physically moved the air compressor, which you can see there, and then hooked it up directly to the foil stamp. Another super chat here from SMM. Thank you. He says, "Hi Vox, longtime blog reader of over 15 years. Wow, and very appreciative unauthorized subscriber. I'm glad that you, like me, made the leap from text into video. But thanks for your longtime support." So what's the point of all this, right? Well, this should show you, and this is very, very encouraging. Now, what you're seeing here is just a test stamping, but it's a test stamping of our own machine, and it's using the same stamp, the same die that was used to stamp out the discourses. Now, what you might notice here, if you look closely, is look how detailed the edges are. It's really clean. And so we were sort of back, we were able to look at the books and look at the stamps and some of the information that came out of that. And what this indicates is that we are confident that our stamping results are going to be superior to the current library books. So this is good. This is excellent. It's only one of several steps that we believe that we can do to improve from what we're already delivering. So so that was an early test. I think, let me see what else we have here. Yeah, so this is the machine in action. The gold thing you see there is what we call a stamping die. And so in fact, that is the die for discourses, and you can see that there's a couple tests that were already done there. We've now got our own guys. The experts have got our guys trained in. That's not goat skin. That's actually just a cheap vinyl that the experts brought over so that we didn't use up the leather on the testing. But the experts got our guys trained in, and here is one of the first results produced by our own guys with our own stamps and our own machines. And that's a really, I don't know if you can see it very clearly there, but that's a really, really I don't think I can improve the size at all, unfortunately, but maybe I can if I do it this way. Nope. Anyhow, you know, the edges and of the design are very, very clear, very, very crisp, and so you know, having these world-class experts showing us what to do and showing us you know, best practices, I think is going to improve the quality of the books. It, maybe not immediately obvious to any you know, casual observer, but if you really look at the stuff, and this is just one area, you know, we're going to be doing slightly different orders. We're going to be, you know, instead of doing one big plate, we're going to break it down to 2 or even 3, and that should make the whole process simpler, cleaner, and the end result should be better. Veritas Button English says, sends a generous super chat. Thank you. He says, tribute to the SDL. This is awesome. Yeah, we're all quite excited about this. I was very, very pleased to see this. Russ Baroness says, surpasses my Franklin set of Greek myths. I really think that we're going to be able to surpass, at this point, I think we're going to be able to surpass the Franklin Library quality. I really do. You know, we still have a ways to go. We still have to, you know, get similar results, you know, superior results from the other machines, but you know, that is just a true high quality stamping. I think that that's better than anything that you're seeing out of our existing stuff. I think it's better than, I know it's better than anything you're seeing out of the Easton stuff. And so, so the next question is going to be, how do we improve upon the style? How do we, you know, Brandon Sanderson's doing some nice stuff with multiple colors and that sort of thing. So we're going to be figuring out how to do those things as well. You know, that's one nice thing about collecting the old books, is that we have this long list of things we want, that we know we could accomplish, things that we know we could do. Simon Draco sends a super chat. Thank you. He says, assembling this takes a fair amount of spatial intelligence. It does, which is why I am not involved in any of that. You know, my main role is to make sure all the guys have what they need and to keep them all operating in context. You know, keep them all focused on the end game, you know, on our primary objectives. And so, you know, people are always like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. And my reaction is always the same, like, yeah, great, but we need to get this done. Yeah, great, but we need to do this. And so, you know, it's very, very encouraging that what we imagined and what we threw out there for you guys and what all the backers of the bindery supported, it looks like we are going to be able to deliver on that and more. You know, I was talking to one of the experts and he was saying, you know, well, I think you should just like do this, you know, just why even bother with that? Because this would be better. And I said, no, we need to be able to do everything that the current bindery does and then do more. I said, so let's make sure that we have the ability to do exactly how it's done. And then if we can do it better as well, if we have something better, then we will. Like, for example, it's possible that we might take different approaches to the hubbing on the library books versus the library books. because if the process takes too long to do 1,000 books, that doesn't mean it's too long to do 100. And if there's a little bit of extra quality, it's appropriate that it's on the Libraria books first. Doesn't mean that the library books are going to be inferior. In fact, they will be better than they are now. But we don't know exactly what our limits are. We're just learning what we're doing. There's some really cool stuff that I've seen from publishers dating back to the 1600s with leather engravings and so forth, that we're going to consider. But we're not going to worry about that yet. Right now, our focus is getting to the point that we can provide a leather-bound book of equal or better quality to those now being provided. That's the first step. We might introduce, just because we're testing it at the same time with the sewing machines, we might introduce a lower end book first, just because we're experimenting with all the machines now. And those are easier to do because they're already done. Doing a leather-bound death mask is something that we could literally just about start on tomorrow. Whereas getting the Iliad done, we have a lot of work to do just to do the interiors. So, but all in good time. I hope this gives those of you who are backers even more confidence that we are going to deliver. Akabear says, my previous bosses, let's just do everything. Yeah, that it's not possible. It's not even remotely possible, especially if you're attempting to do things of particularly high quality. And our objective is very clear. We want to do the best, most beautiful books in the world. That's the objective. That's what we're working towards. And on the basis of literally the first day's results, I believe we are going to get there. I think that the initial evidence suggests that we will. So, heirloom quality. Yeah, that's what we're going for. Do I have to go to Switzerland to purchase my Castalia Library T-shirt? No, we're gonna get that going. I've got some work to do tonight with the guys at the 2 shipping centers, and we need to see about getting the books out to Europe and the rest of the world. They've put some options together. I just haven't had a conversation with them about that yet. I'll probably do it. I'm more likely to do it tomorrow. I need to do it when I'm actually fully functional. That's one of my recommendations, by the way. My philosophy is, if you're tired, don't put yourself in a position where you have to make decisions. The decisions that you're going to make are going to be suboptimal. And so, unless it's absolutely vital, put it off until you're ready. That's not a procrastination. You don't do that for reasons of procrastination. You do it for reasons of being in optimal condition. Now, if you're feeling fine and you're still avoiding making a decision, then that's a problem. But Aha Moment says, I don't have money yet for a sub, but I still love seeing the progress and what the books look like. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's how I was with Franklin Library for years. I couldn't afford those. I was my entire budget, my entire month's budget for paperback books wasn't enough to buy a single Franklin Library book, but I still love them. You know, so, um, you know, and like with the Castelli history, wherever we can, we're going to make sure that we get the EPUBs available to people who want them. Q1882 says, if you have half the love for design that you do for book margins, we're in good hands. Well, I do love design a lot. It doesn't matter whether it's a business or a game or a product. I mean, you know, I still work on game design every week. Not because I'm, you know, doing anything professionally. I haven't done anything professionally for maybe 4 or 5 years, but you know, taking on a game design contract is not a wise use of my time at this point. But you know, I'm still optimistic and hoping that I'll have a chance to do something, preferably something significant, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years or so. Same vein as don't shop for groceries when you're hungry. Yeah, that's true. You know, you do tend to make suboptimal decisions when you're hungry. You make optimal decisions when you're tired, and so it's always key to do that. But the point is and like for example, I was intending to get the June newsletter out, but now we're probably just going to get one out on the 1st of July, which is just as well because we have 2 books to announce: the new history book and the new library book. So, you know, which by the way is a reminder, if you're interested in getting the first history book, you've got about 10 days left to subscribe and pay the 2 catch-ups if you want the first book in the series. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyhow, to again return to the focus of my advice, always keep the context of your project in mind. And if you're dealing with people who don't, then it's really on you to work with them to get the necessary information, to get all the necessary pieces. The more proficient they are, the more likely it is that they are going to have information that you don't have, and something's going to be omitted until its need becomes apparent. So, Russ Baroness says, thanks for publishing Taleb, by the way. He's amazing. That's brave business decision making too. I don't know about that. I thought it was pretty obvious, you know. But, you know, I appreciate that. All right. So have a great evening, everyone. I will keep you further updated, and I hope to have more bindery experiments to show you early next week. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.